Shine.
Give it to me.
All right. So, Dynamite, just like WWE was apparently really good this weekend, AEW also had a really good week. Like, there was some fantastic stuff. Last week, I know that the chatter, I had lots of good things to say last week. I happened to err on the positive side of wrestling. I'm pretty easy to please for the most part, wrestling wise, anyway.
Mhm.
But like, I know that the chatter online was that, oh, last week was kind of a dud, blah, blah, blah. I didn't feel the same way, but I think that I am now for this week in the vast majority and saying this week rocked. Like it was a great week for AEW. Dynamite opened up with they didn't open up with something else, but the opening match was Adam Cole versus Buddy Matthews.
Mm.
That was Buddy Matthews is one of those guys. It's easy to overlook him. He gets lost in the shuffle with the other House of Black guys because Malachi is the leader, and he's got that, unmistakable kind of aura of mystery and sinister thing. And then there's Brody King, who's enormous, and you can't freaking miss him. And then there's Buddy Matthews, and he's kind of the odd man out, which sucks because he's probably one of those guys who should be probably not at the top end of the conversation, but he should be in the conversation for best pound for pound guys in the world. That guy can go, and he can go with anybody. He's also one of those guys. He's not super tall, but because he's super jacked, like he's like Ishii. He wrestles bigger than he is. It's believable that he can take on, a lot of different guys of a wide range of sizes and shapes because he's freaking jacked and he's I can't remember who it was, but I saw a long time ago when he first got hired, but he got let go from WWE and got signed by AEW. Somebody on my timeline said they did the meme thing where it's like, oh, we've got, I want to see Kenny Omega. No, we got Kenny Omega at home. And it was Buddy Matthews. I mean, there are definite similarities there. And if you're going to have similarities to a professional wrestler to for people to make those kinds of comparisons, you could do worse than Kenny Omega.
True.
Like, you could do way worse than Kenny Omega. But yeah, he and Adam Cole have a great match. Matthews controls most of it, which kind of makes sense. I do think that they probably went a little too heavy on the ankle business. Adam Cole was selling the ankle to almost a cartoonish degree. Is like, dude, you just came back from injury. Like, we know your ankle is put together with cadaver bones and stuff, but like, you got cleared. So like, come on now. I don't mind that they worked the ankle, but like to the degree they did, to the point where it was implied that it was affecting him mentally, and that it was like that wasn't for me. But the match itself was great. At one point, Cole, like he's like, oh, my ankle, and then he starts walking up the ramp with the trainers and the referees, and Matthews is like, what, you're just gonna run away, you coward? And it's like, what about is this the new Adam Cole? And Cole's like, he puts his mean mug on and he goes back, and of course he wins the dang thing. So like, I thought it was great. I thought Matthews didn't come out looking any worse for it, which was great. It's always great when you can get both guys over. And I thought it was really, really good. So whoever remember the storyline going is whoever between Adam Cole and Roderick Strong gets 3 wins first is going to be the one winding up facing MJF at Full Gear. So this was his first win. Afterwards, Matthews shakes his hand, and then the lights go out, and then they do a thing where they switch it. I don't know, like, it's one of those suspension of disbelief things. The rule of cool overrules the logic of this. But when the light comes back on, it's Malachi Black with his hands, and like the handshake is never broken. So I was like, that's kind of weird. But he's in full. He's in dress clothes, but he's got the paint on, he's got the contacts in, and he's like staring into his soul. And Adam Cole's like, all right, I guess it's you and me then. I thought it was a great, cool bit of business, very thematic with the House of Black, their whole deal. I thought it was great. Thumbs up.
Yeah.
Another good thing, Blackpool Combat Club or whatever I'm calling them, they come out and this segment I thought was very interesting. Like they say Moxley says that Orange Cassidy, his next challenger for the world title, thinks he's in control, but Mox is still really pulling the strings. And then he orders everybody else in the BCC to attack Wheeler Yuta. And
Yeah.
they like lay him out, and it looks like they're gonna Pillmanize his neck like they did with Chuck Taylor last week. And I'm thinking, I mean, I know that this is a trap, but like holy cow, like I bought in. Like he's really willing to do this. Like I bought in. It was very
Yeah.
convincing. And so obviously OC comes out and then everybody just like piles on, and that's when people start coming out from the back. And the best thing about this wasn't the Yuta stuff. The best thing was that Private Party was the last ones to come out as everybody's clearing the ring, and on the outside, Moxley eats an orange punch. But then all of a sudden, the Young Bucks music starts hitting, and it's like, oh, we're doing this now. Like
Yeah.
the transition, it took me by surprise, and it was great. Again, one of those surprises that you can't call. I
hmm
love it when that happens. And it made sense for the Young Bucks characters
hmm
because, of course, they're going to take advantage of the distraction that Private Party is feeling towards these other people. Now they're going to be thinking about, their friends while they're supposed to be fighting for the World Tag Team title. Like, I thought that was a great way to transition into it. It put that seed of doubt, and then the match actually happens and it's even better. Like this match had literally everything that you could wish for. Like it had callbacks, they teased dissension between Quen and Zay at one
hmm
point when Zay accidentally hit Quen with the with the ring bell. Quen later gets, they kind of make up in the middle of the match, and then Quen gets taken out all the way up the ramp and laid out on the ramp by the Young Bucks when he's not the legal man, only for Okada to come out and give him a tombstone piledriver to lay him out next to the graveyard set, which was fantastic. Amazing thematic presence there. In the middle, so Cassidy's alone and he's facing both Bucks and they're beating the crap out of him, and they put him in the EVP trigger, or they try the EVP trigger and he ducks and they hit each other's knees, and so there's a little hope spot there. But then they get him and they get him in the EVP trigger again, and he kicks out. Nobody
mm.
kicks out of the EVP trigger.
I was surprised too.
Nobody.
I was so
I thought
surprised.
it was it. I thought it was it. I was hook, line, sinker. Thought that was it.
hmm
And then at a little later, Matt hits the one winged angel, which needs, of course, that's Kenny's protected finish. So nobody can kick out of it, even if it's not applied by Kenny Omega. So that requires Quen to finally come back down to the ring and save it, which is fine.
Right.
I'm great with that. I'm great with protecting finishers. And then a couple minutes later, they as they're going for the TK driver, Quen crotches Nicholas on the top, and then they hit Gin and Juice, and Private Party's finally the World Tag Team Champions, and this huge celebration. It was so cathartic.
Oh
I,
yeah.
this was, they really pushed hard the narrative of this was 5 years in the making, and I would have been so disappointed if they hadn't gone through. I wouldn't have been surprised, but I would have been so disappointed if they hadn't gone through with it. And I'm so glad they pulled the trigger, the EVP trigger, on Private Party. And that's just going to lead into what I say about Collision later. But
Oh
this
yeah.
is such a great direction that they're going in. I think they're finally, they've been slowly getting there, but they're very clearly creatively turning a corner now. It's towards
Oh
the end
yeah.
of the year, so it kind of took them
Yeah.
a while. But AEW, I think, is finally back on the track where it needs to be.
Yeah.
All right, so if there was one thing I didn't really like about this episode, it was the learning tree segment. I know that That's probably not going to surprise anybody.
Nah,
For the record, I like Brian Keith. I think honestly, I think his gimmick of just repeating things is kind of funny, and he can go in the ring. And
oh yeah, he really can.
Large William has improved so much in his time in AEW, and he is legitimately entertaining. I really don't think you can hold back on turning him babyface for too much longer. I mean, I think he's got another year tops as a heel before the crowd is just going to want him to be a babyface. And Jericho is Jericho. Like, again, I really wish that he would just leave so we can miss him for the sole purpose of missing him. But he keeps these segments alive where he keeps on mentioning Jay Briscoe, and it's really annoying. Like, you already won. You won the belt. You don't need to be making these tiresome, bad taste allusions to somebody who, to this specific crowd especially, means so much. The AEW audience probably, I mean, I haven't asked every single one of them, but I think it's a pretty good guess of saying that most of them were probably at least familiar with Ring of Honor's glory days before AEW was even a thing. So a lot of these people probably did have a great attachment to Jay. And like, I know it's been almost 2 years now. It doesn't feel like it. It still feels raw. It still feels fresh.
Way raw.
I get why it's being done, but I don't particularly care for it. And as far as it went with this segment, it was just them talking. Like, it didn't set anything up really. The match that would be set up from this was done by Mark. It wasn't done by Jericho.
Yeah.
The only thing I can think of is that I'm wondering if, I've heard a couple of rumors. I don't know how true this is, but the Tony Khan may be somewhat close to getting a Ring of Honor TV deal on a place like True TV or something like that. And so maybe he wants to do the thing where he puts the biggest name that he can, the biggest, most recognizable name that he can in the prominent spot, like he did when he put it on the first time when they were trying to shop ROH around the first time. From a business standpoint, I get that. From a creative standpoint, I'm not a huge fan of it. Like, I mean, how often is Chris Jericho actually going to show up on Ring of Honor? I mean, that's apparent from what I understand, since I don't really watch Ring of Honor, but I do follow people who do. And one of the primary concerns that they have is that, like, with the exception of Athena, who is amazing and is on an absolute tear of being forever women's champ down there, tearing it up with anybody and everybody, and making it her show essentially. With the exception of her, the Ring of Honor champions don't show up on the show. Like, they just don't.
No, because they're on AEW.
Because they're on AEW. Like, it's if you're going to do the separate brand thing, I understand wanting to have those champions appear on the show in order to try to boost the Ring of Honor brand. There's a certain logic to that. But if you don't put those people if you're trying to lure people from AEW to also watch ROH, you need to have the same people that you're luring them with on both shows. It doesn't work otherwise. It just feels like you're being lied to at that point.
Yeah.
And nobody likes to be lied to. So, like, it's Jericho he says that he wants to bring Ring of Honor back to prominence, and it's a height it's not seen in a while. And I know it's a promo, but I really hope that they take that tact seriously. Time will tell to see if it does, but for me, this segment did nothing because I don't really believe that it's actually going to amount to anything. It was somebody else could have benefited from that TV time. To finish off the shine, though, Shelton Benjamin versus Swerve Strickland was your main event, and it was awesome.
Yeah, it was.
Shelton Benjamin has been a beast.
Yeah, yeah, I like it.
He has it's a different style for him. I think he benefits a lot with the average smaller size of the AEW roster in comparison to WWE where he came from. Because the WWE, it's still kind of the land of the giants. Even their smaller guys are tall.
Mm.
Like Seth Rollins is 6'4". Think about that. The way that he wrestles, that guy is 6'4". Okay, their smaller guys are still kind of big.
Yeah.
So somebody like Shelton Benjamin, who's a big dude himself, in comparison to the general populace at around 6'2", and probably walking around at 240, 250. Um, that's a big guy. That's a big guy. And, so when you pit him up against, I mean, not somebody like a Swerve Strickland, but like they put him against two smaller guys in Sammy Guevara and especially Leo Rush, who's small for any crowd. But
Hmm.
like he's had the opportunity to wrestle a completely different style where he's almost Brock Lesnar like in his
Yeah.
approach. His offense is far more differentiated, but he's got the ability now to do the pacing where it's slow and deliberate while he's chucking guys all over the place. Like, and with
Love
his
that.
age, like the dude is like 48 or something like that. So that style really, I mean, he's still a freak athlete, but age catches up to everybody, and he probably can't do the marathons that he used to be able to do. So that style
Yeah.
benefits him from an energy standpoint as well. So everybody wins there because Benjamin looks like a beast. He gets to have matches with all these new opponents with great, great matchups. He gets to, wrestle a style that benefits him in the long run because he can afford to be the big guy in the match for once, instead
Hmm.
of the guy who's fighting from underneath and has to take a drubbing and then do all the high spots. Like he's looked incredible, and this match with Swerve was, different from the other two because Swerve's a big dude too, bigger, well, at least a bigger dude. But I think both of them really benefited from it. Swerve
Hmm.
finally wrestled like a baby face. Like that's the thing. Like because just like we always talk about, Adam Page is not the heel. Swerve Strickland had babyface.
Mm-mm.
Like that's one of the big, people were cheering him, but he didn't wrestle like a babyface. He wrestled like a heel.
Yeah.
He was the heel basically facing in Christian Cage another heel, and then the preeminent babyface in the company, Will Ospreay and Daniel Bryan. He was he was the heel like the whole time, even though he was meant to be cheered or whatever. It was a very weird situation. This time, I think he took the time off as a reset. He showed his loyalty to Prince Nana. He still has an edge, but he's got far more babyface characteristics now coming off the injury. And I think that's
Hmm.
going to serve him well going forward because if they're going to book him as a babyface, he may as well act like one.
Yeah.
Because
Yeah.
that means that his babyface run will actually last longer because he's going to be giving the fans what they want. So
Yeah.
he wrestled from underneath. He took his drubbing and he got he got his shots in, but like I wouldn't say he was in control of the match for the majority of it. So but he still beat Shelton Benjamin clean. Swerve stomp, give Benjamin a loss that doesn't do him any harm because he lost to a former world champion, the most
Yeah.
recent, not the most recent, but the second most recent world champion. Um, and then MVP gets on the phone, and I thought this was a great way to do that because like I can't remember a time that anybody has done this. He gets on the phone, he's like, "Yeah, we need you," and then all of a sudden, all the lights go out, and Bobby Lashley makes his debut with some freaking banger music from Mikey Ruckus.
Hmm. It
Like
was
Mikey
cool.
Ruckus is not he as bad as Def Rebel is. Mikey Ruckus is the exact opposite. He is on a tear of making fantastic music for people right now. He's got the big timpani drums, and like it I am not a Bobby Lashley fan. I think he's a black hole of charisma. I think that he does a couple things well, but I'm not really interested in him.
Mm-hmm.
But that presentation could not have been better for him. He was presented as a big deal. He had great music. He came out looking fresh with the pleather suit. He
Yeah.
destroys Swerve Strickland. Had him the last shot of the show was him having Strickland in the full Nelson, passed out with drool hanging from his chin. Like it
Mm-hmm.
was with all the rest of the Hurt Syndicate now mostly fully formed. I still think they're going to get at least one more
Yeah.
member, because they have
I
to
think too.
replace. I think probably two as well. I think they'll have a tag team of two smaller guys, but they have to replace Cedric, right? So
Mm-hmm.
because I can't get Cedric because he re-signed to WWE. So I think it's probably going to wind up being Leo Rush and maybe one other person.
Max
Uh,
Caster.
maybe Max Caster. That makes me upset though, because I really want to
It
see
upsets me
my
too, but if you look at the last 2 or 3 times they interacted with the Acclaim, just watch Max's face
yeah,
during those interactions, man. It says it all.
yeah. Oh, I'll bring it up on Collision.
Like
But
he even kept the card. Like when they handed him that
yeah,
card the first time, like Anthony,
yeah.
we don't want nothing to do with it, but he just
He just discreetly put it in his
put it in
pocket,
his
comes up
pocket.
on
Yeah.
Collision.
Okay.
But
Okay.
I don't want that, because I want my fantasy of, yeah, you were my sister. I've never
Mm-hmm.
really paid you back for that, so I'm going to destroy you, Max Cast. That's what I
Yeah.
want. If that and if Caster wasn't on this whole I'm the greatest wrestler in the world or whatever garbage that he's got going on, I would say that you could use that as an initiation, right? He wants it so bad that he's willing to go through and take his licking, but that
Yeah.
doesn't really fit with the character that he has at the moment. So sadly, my fantasy will not come to fruition. I don't think. I think you're right. I think it's going to be Leo and Max. But
Yeah.
either way, the match and the night ended on a real high note after an overwhelmingly good card, top to bottom.
Mm-hmm.
Like the learning tree stuff notwithstanding, honestly, it was a nowhere segment, but it didn't take that long. It wasn't like that time could have gone to somebody else, but at the same time, it could have been worse. It could have been real worse. So ultimately, I thought this is a great episode. So yeah, let's go to the
Yeah.
morning.
It was really good. Heck yeah.